Now, what is a first-person, story-driven, space salvaging survival game? And I played quite a bit of this. I don't know if I streamed it. I'm always drunk when I stream, which we will do tonight. Welcome, Nerd Chatter, a weekly podcast where we discuss stories throughout the week from the film, gaming, and tech industries. Today I'm running it solo, so we're just going to go over some roundup stories and get into some of the news. But before we get into that, make sure to hit that like and subscribe. It'd be much appreciated. Lucas, this is his week off anyways. He works. Kenny, last minute, got hung up with something. So he's unable to join me. Garrett is in the midst of his esports season, I believe. So he's all hung up on the weekends. So it's just me. Luckily for me, it wasn't a busy week. Not too much news being dropped. I mean, there was news and things we could have discussed, preferably. But, I'll just run down some of these stories and then shout out some of the free games and call it a day. First on here, National Treasure Edge of History has been canceled after just one season. People speculating as to whether Nicolas Cage was going to make a cameo appearance. But unfortunately, the show has been canceled before that has had the opportunity. Magic the Gathering YouTuber says Pinkertons threatened him with 200K fines. It's a Kotaku article. Looking into that one in particular, it's actually kind of crazy. I mean, the Pinkertons have been around for like 150 years, 140 years or something. They used to be a private security firm that worked with, was it Union Pacific? One of the major railroad lines back in like the Wild West and shit. And, like I believe they're in Red Dead. I think they're actually called the Pinkertons in Red Dead, if I'm not mistaken. They still call themselves the Pinkertons. Then after like the Wild West was done, they became a security firm and really just like union busting. They were just there to like bust unions and stuff like that. So, they've had a pretty dodgy history, in American lore. But yeah, the company they sicked them on this one guy who managed to come upon a box of unreleased Magic the Gathering cards. I don't know anything about Magic the Gathering. I don't play it. I do know a couple of the key cards and stuff that are expensive, but as far as like the series, I think the name of the new series and the one prior were very similar, so there might have been like a mix-up, but this dude ordered a box from his local shop, and he got this pack instead, and this box instead, and then he did like an opening on stream, and Magic, they lost their shit. So they sent the Pinkertons, and these dudes just like showed up to his house. So I guess they showed up the day before and like was scouting his neighborhood and like talking to all of his neighbors and like interviewing them. And then the next day, he wasn't there, so they didn't approach him. But he found that out later. And then the next day, he was chilling, and I guess his dog started going crazy. And here come the Pinkertons to make like legal threats and shit, and say that he could spend like, what was it, like 10 years in prison or some shit, and then like 200K fine and yada yada. Like he had to like return the cards like immediately and delete all the footage and pictures, and it was like, all right, well, don't know how successful that's gonna be, but that's just a crazy story. I mean, the guy complied, so hopefully nothing else happens, but it's just insane that Wizards of the Coast would implement such like ruthless tactics, but that did happen. Next one on here, Final Destination 6 officially greenlit at Warner Brothers. Let's see. Zach Lipovsky and Adam B. Stein are directing, and John Watts is producing. I think anybody from like, back when those movies were coming out, they were always like just fun, just ruthless violence that everybody loved. We're gonna get another one of those. Everybody knows I live in Washington, so I get the trucks all the time. But that scene with the lumber truck. with the wood logs in the back, and it like flies off and like crushes that cop and shit. And, like, yeah, pretty crazy. So it'll be interesting to see some of the new kills, especially with like today's CGI and even practical effects capabilities. You know, it'll be pretty entertaining, I'm sure. Next one on here for all you SpongeBob fans out there, new movie coming to Netflix, Bikini Bottom, the Sandy Cheeks movie. SpongeBob was like just after like I phased out of like Nickelodeon stuff, so I never got into SpongeBob. So I'm not, only thing I know about SpongeBob is like meeting him at the guy that does his voice like at like Comic-Con and shit like that. The next one is new Flash trailer drops. Film releases June 16th. Pretty decent trailer. It's becoming more watchable the more footage I see of it, less gimmicky. But you do see a lot more glamour shots of Michael Keaton in the Batman suit and the Batwing and stuff like that. So it's pretty cool. I mean, if you're avoiding spoilers, obviously don't watch it. But if you want to see some new footage, this one's actually worth a watch. Next one, Star Trek Resurgence arrives on May 23rd of this year. I think that one's like it's like a narrative driven like adventure game or something like that. It's one of those. I mean, it's Trek, so it's gonna be a little bit boring, but whatever. Yeah, but it's gonna be one of those more boring, like story driven type of experience. Next one, Nintendo is confirmed for Gamescom this year. It's pretty crazy. This one we could have discussed a little bit more, but them backing out of E3 and them jumping on the Gamescom train is that going to be the new E3? Is it going to be Gamescom, or are they going to focus on just those type of events instead? I don't know. It'll be interesting. Next one, Black Mirror season 6 dropped some new photos, new poster. I think it is. Yeah, we got a new poster here. Salma Hayek, what up? A couple other photos. I did see the trailer. They did drop a new trailer as well. Yeah, we have all those retweeted on our Twitter if you want to check those out. Looking pretty interesting. I'm a Black Mirror fan, I guess you would say. I'm not. I did enjoy it quite a bit when I watched it, and I'm waiting for something new from that series. So it'll be interesting. We got Aaron Paul. Who else is on here? Annie Murphy, Ben Barnes. Michael Cera is going to be in this season. Rory Culkin, Salma Hayek, Zazie Beetz. Okay, so yeah, we got some talent floating around in Black Mirror in this upcoming season. I didn't get a date, I believe, so might want to have to keep the ear out for that one. Next one on here, along with the Guardians of the Galaxy 3, red carpet and this and that, and all the different promotional stuff that's going on with that. Obviously, there was going to be some interviews with James Gunn where people were talking about Superman, and you could tell that he was kind of like, not because it was like conflicting, brands. It was just more so like, let's focus on this movie right now. We could talk about this like tomorrow, But he cooperated. He definitely he gave his answers, but really they're asking him, who do you have in mind for Superman? And then he'd be like, well, there's a couple people in mind, but like nothing solid right now. We're just kind of focusing on Guardians right now, blah, blah, blah. But he did make comments, and the vibe that he's giving off with the new Superman is very much kind of like what I've been looking for, which is more of the character is done so well that you just want to be around that character. You know what I mean? Like that actual feeling of hope. And, he wants to show respect to the actual genuine vibe you get from Superman as a character. So, pretty stoked about that. If you're keeping your ear out on social media, you're probably getting these little snippets of his conversation, because, he's being interviewed quite a bit right now. So, get some good shit. I'm pretty excited. Next one on here, Carlos Santana documentary acquired by Sony. It's gonna be called Carlos. I mean, from the 90s, and that was like his second wave of popularity, and I'm Latino, so it's like, there was always Santana playing and shit. And then like in the late '90s, early 2000s, when he started doing like little like cameo appearances or whatever, featured by Carlos Santana. Those songs were always like fucking bangers and shit. So it'd be nice. I haven't heard about the boy in a few years, so it'll be cool to see a documentary and kind of get his story, because the dude is an amazing guitarist. It's like he's like literally one of the best ever to live. So next one on here, From Software and Bandai Namco announced Armored Core 6 Fires of Rubicon launches in August of 2023. It's an IGN article. We did retweet that. I never got into the Armored Core series, but I know that the reaction was pretty crazy when they announced that Armored Core 6. I forget what event that was, but it was a pretty dead event, I remember, and that being one of the highlights for most people. So, there you go, if you're into that. Next one, we did get the Jedi Survivor debacle. I'm sure by this point, you're aware of how poor the PC performance has been for the game, and even on consoles, it has been a bit dodgy. I think it was like 150 gigabytes or something or other, when it came to the install. And then, day one patch didn't do much. A lot of issues. I think people with crazy rigs, 4090 rigs are pulling like 29 to like 35 frames average, which is pretty atrocious, especially for a game like that. And like, if you want ray tracing and all that shit, it's just, that's why you buy that game, because of how pretty it looks. So there's quite a bit of mess going down with that. EA just kind of addressing every single issue separately and being like, we are aware of this, we're getting to it. So I mean, the game is pretty in shambles. A lot of bragging going on in regards to the fact that it only took 3 years to develop this game, and during COVID and all, and people are starting to kind of clamor about how that's showing. As far as like the gameplay and stuff, people seem to be pretty satisfied. I think it being so closely just kind of ported out from the original game that they really did just kind of use the same game and then build on it. Make it better, mod it out, if you will. So I don't doubt that the game will be improved and those frame rates will be brought up at some point. But typically I don't think you're going to be looking for 100 plus FPS and shit like that when it's all said and done. You're like probably going to squeeze away with like 60 FPS after they get done, just because of how poorly optimized it is. You know what I mean? So a lot of negative reviews going on with that. I think it's actually at mostly negative right now on Steam, which is insane for especially this game. But I mean, you can change those reviews on Steam and adjust that over time. So hopefully they get their shit together. Next one on here for the Fortnite fans out there, Darth Vader, is already in the game. But now you're gonna have Anakin Skywalker, and that's Clone Wars Anakin too. So, the long hair, the '70s hair, that the Clone Wars look, like the animation, a little bit more on the realistic side. So, looking pretty decent. No date as to when they're gonna be dropping that, but I was like, there's a couple skins where it's like I don't play Fortnite, but kind of want to get in there just to like buy those or like unlock those or do whatever, just to like collect them. You know what I mean? Because like, Darth Vader, Goku, Chun-Li, what up? Anakin would be dope. There's just a couple others, where it's just like, I kind of wish I played the game, but I'm just too old for that shit. Next one, Twisted Metal drops a trailer. Looking pretty corny, not gonna lie, but they did drop a little snippet of Sweet Tooth, and anybody play those games, it's like, okay, let me be any of these other whatever cars, or this dope ass ice cream truck with this flaming clown head on top, and this murderer, big ass like bodybuilder clown, So everybody chose, Sweet Tooth when you could. And, it's kind of scratched one of those itches. I'd be willing to watch it. It's on Peacock. I mean, let's see. I don't know if Peacock's the free one or whatever, but if I had to pay for it, probably not. Hopefully it's one of those where it's like, holy shit, Peacock did something good. And then it's actually worth watching. But that did drop, so check out that trailer. We did retweet that. Dodgeball sequel has been confirmed. Vince Vaughn is returning. I mean, I don't think this movie hit as hard for me as it did like everybody else. Like everybody loved that movie, but me, it was kind of like a whatever. I was more of like a grandma's boy, obscure, stupid comedy type shit. And like Dodgeball kind of seemed like, I don't know, like more mainstream. And I was just, I guess, too edgy, I guess. I mean, I do laugh when I watch it. It's just Ben Stiller in particular. It's just such a cornball that it's kind of hard to get into it. Even though I do like Vince Vaughn quite a bit, you know what I mean? So I mean, I'll give it a watch. I have seen the original, so I mean, I can definitely watch the new one and get through it. Next one on here, an Entertainment Weekly interview. Dave Filoni did mention some information in regards to his Star Wars movie. And he, what did he say? He says, Dave Filoni says, Mandoverse Star Wars film is going to be clamoring, quote, clamoring of characters saying, how do I get in this picture? And that's what John and I have been figuring out. So, I don't know. I mean, whatever. I mean, people know you know how I am about member berries. So, I mean, I don't really want them to get too crazy with all that. But, I've been chipping away at, I finished Clone Wars in the last week, since last week's show. I finished, I think, 2 seasons of Clone Wars, 3 seasons of Clone Wars. I think it was like 2.5 seasons of Clone Wars, and then I have gotten through 3.5 seasons of Rebels. So by this time next week, I'll have finished and caught up to all that and be up on all the Thrawn stuff. So I mean, I've brushed up on my Thrawn knowledge. I think I made a inappropriate, I don't say inappropriate, but inaccurate, assertion that he's like the Hitler of the Star Wars. I want to give him that. He's not some like fucking lunatic dickhead, like he's just an incredibly cunning and brutal and overly intelligent, general. He's very efficient, and intimidating, you know what I mean? So I get it. I don't think anything about my interpretation of the character based on like what I've heard and seen like in the internet ether and what Garrett has told me and stuff like that. It's I don't think it's changed anything of how I think, but I just wanted to make that comparison now after having watched all of it. So I do apologize if that triggered anybody in any of my previous comments, but yeah, I think he's a little more in depth than that. It would be easy just to make him that Hitler type character. Like obviously. So it's not doing that character service a proper justice, I guess, by making such a careless assertion. But I've been brushing up on all that. I'm Ezra in Rebels is like one of the most insufferable characters like I've ever experienced in Star Wars. It's making it really difficult to get through it. Like I basically hate him at like all times. I've constantly left like an open mind in regards to like that character being cool and shit. But it's like, I don't know, it's like when Anakin was annoying, in episode 2. He was just like snobby and annoying, and it's just like this character is like that at all times. And like, yeah, he has character growth and he's more adult like in 3rd season and on, but he still acts like a little bitch, and it pisses me off. So, I don't know. I'll get through it just for the Thrawn stuff. The first 2 seasons were a real drag. Like obviously the last episode of the first season held it, And then the last few episodes of the second season was like, okay. And then the third season, it got better. But I don't know. It was really tough to get through those first two seasons for sure. It was really bad. So, I'm ready for it. But I don't know if because I mean, based on how he's saying this in this quote, clamoring of characters saying, "How do I get in this picture?" And that's what John and I have been figuring out. So, I mean, it's like I don't know what that means. Does that mean that he wants to get all of these characters that he set up in live action into one film? And if that's the case, it's like okay, you're gonna force it, and that's not good, So I mean, I don't know. I don't know if that's going to be worse or I guess better. I don't know. Now that I'm familiar with all these characters that they're referencing and bringing in and stuff like that, it feels like it could work. I mean, based on what they're setting up in like the shows and stuff like that. Obviously, there are pre-established teams and groups of people and stuff like that, and getting other characters brought in like Mando and stuff like that wouldn't be too far-fetched. So we shall see. Next one on here, I just saw a review of it and I figured I would share. The Sinden Light Gun, Sinden. It's basically like a Time Crisis CRT TV gun that you would play like on Dreamcast or Xbox, what have you. Those need just like Duck Hunt, like the zapper. Those need to be CRT to be effective. Like you can't use those on newer TVs, LEDs and plasma and shit like that. You can't use it on those. So I was looking into this review, and it's a wireless handgun. It's got controls on the side. You can get two hands on it. It looks pretty nice, pretty sturdy. But what it does is the game or software, what have you, places a white border around the screen that the gun then uses a camera to quickly track and pinpoint its precise pointing position, where it's aimed on the screen for you to actually interact with it. So they found a workaround for being able to use zapper guns at the very least, on computer, because you can actually overlay the white border and stuff like that. So we did retweet the review on that from Time Extension. They have a nice little review on it and goes into the details of that. Let me see on here if I can get a price. It's like 139 pounds for the recoil upgrade. So there's actually a recoil upgrade, just like Time Crisis. Damn, I mean that's actually kind of sick, to be honest. So yeah, you're looking at like $100 to $150 for one of these controllers. But if you head on over to our Twitter, you can actually see how it looks, and it looks very satisfying. It's like, oh, I kind of want to play. It's like I want to get my hands on that. Like it just looks cool. It looks like it feels good, And if any, the what is it, House of the Dead or Time Crisis or any of those other games, even like emulators, being able to play Duck Hunt again finally, like that's amazing. You know what I mean? So pretty stoked personally. I'm into that retro shit, so head on over, check that one out. I'm gonna skim through here, make sure that I haven't missed anything. Oh yes, obviously. So the CMA, the UK CMA, did block the Microsoft Activision acquisition, but for the reasoning that this is the conversation. We would have been talking about this for quite a while, because I'm not going to get into it too much. We'll talk about it next week when we have the boys here. But they cited cloud gaming as being the reason. So I mean, the reason that they said that PlayStation, Sony didn't have any grounds to say that it would be harmful for competition of console sales, which is the direct correlation for all this. Why Sony is fighting. They want to sell more PlayStations. They want to sell more PlayStations than Xboxes. Obviously, that's the goal, So makes sense, It's like that one makes sense. But when they looked into cloud gaming, They did say that having, like, throwing in all the same shit, where it's like, they have the ability to tighten the market and like refuse games to people, and like Microsoft again randomly after this is like, we said that we wouldn't, like what are you talking about, like, Jesus, so they kind of they it's almost like, I don't know, it feels like Microsoft, just because like cloud gaming is like whatever, like COD will never be, I'm not gonna say never, but it'll always be like the lesser of the options to play that type of game. You know what I mean? Like, the more connected you are directly to the device that's actually running that game, the more of that actual feel that you're gonna get of that game. It's like if you're on a console, you're on a wireless controller, there's a slight, super slight delay, super slight, very minimal, and that's, if you're playing online, it's like unnoticeable in comparison to whether or not you're hardline to your router or running wireless. You know what I mean? So it's like there's already a big issue there when you do separate that. You know what I mean? Enough to where it's like people that actually do want to like take FPS games seriously and stuff like that, they typically have their consoles hardline. If you're having internet connectivity issues with your console, multiplayer and lag and shit like that, and you're running wireless, like, of course, dude, like of course, like, it, to anybody out there that's playing FPS and has their console set up on Wi-Fi and thinks that it's the same as having it hardlined through a landline, trust me, run the cord, plug it in, and see the difference. It's insane. Don't be that kid. You know what I mean? Like, get your shit hardline, because it makes a difference. So we're talking about the most dramatic version of that, right? Cloud gaming, where you're separating the entire location of, it's like when I play, I'll stream. It's like I will stream, for example, my Xbox to my PC so that I can play on my PC, right? Or another option is, I have the Steam link and I could do it backwards, right? Where it's like I can stream Steam games onto my TV in my bedroom, and I can play those, with a controller. The delay there is incredibly noticeable, to where playing like something like 2K is impossible. Like, impossible. There's no way of making jumpers. You know what I mean? Like, it's not possible. Playing COD in that situation is even worse. You know what I mean? So again, that's like the third level of disconnect, that you can have from the device that you're playing. And by that point, you've already reached the point where it's like unplayable. And even if cloud gaming is better than that, it's so bad that it feels like it'll never be fixed. You know what I mean? So cloud gaming in particular is just, it's not the best example to be like, oh, Microsoft is gonna just come up big because they own 60 to 70% of like cloud gaming and blah blah blah. It's like, because they're the only ones that are pushing it. They're the only ones that are trying to and have been trying to convince people that is how gaming is going to be. Like, they're putting in the legwork. Like, every company touts it. They say, yeah, whatever. Like, Sony, yeah, they'll do some cloud shit. And then like Nintendo is like, yeah, we'll kind of do our own version of cloud shit, eventually. But like, Microsoft is the only one that's like putting in the legwork to actually make it work. So of course they're going to have that whole like main share of that market. But in reality, things like Stadia and stuff like that, they collapse because that whole technology is insufficient at this time. and for the very foreseeable future. Like I said, like, you know what I mean? Like, the technology will improve, but the handicap, the lag, you know what I mean? That offset will always be there between those two forms of technology. Whether you're running a game in front of you or whether or not you're running it in the cloud, there is going to be some type of delay, some type of buffering that's going on. We're not there. We'll always inch closer and closer and closer to it, but like the closer we get to it, it's just the smaller that distance will be until we reach the point where we can actually do it. But we'll probably never catch up to it. You know what I mean? Where it's like, playing on cloud is just as efficient and clean as playing as a console in your living room. Like, that'll probably never happen. You know what I mean? So that's a weird one. They're contesting that. Obviously, I don't think anybody's ever like undone. It's like you can appeal it, but I don't think it's ever been like undone like that. But I guess now it's on Microsoft to I guess appease them or convince them that they don't know what the hell they're talking about. That cloud gaming is the least of any worry of, of anything, and that they'll more than be happy to comply with that as well. We'll see. There's a lot left in the tank on this one for sure. So we have to keep our attention on this one. I think things are going to progress pretty quickly, though. So probably by next week, our next show, we'll have some information on that. I'm assuming, most likely. And last one on here, there's Final Fantasy. What the hell is that? 16? What is the XVI? PlayStation 5 bundle announced. It comes out June 22nd. When I was getting the PlayStation 5, I was like, damn, I wish they had like a PGA Tour bundle. That'd be dope. Two birds with one stone. But, I would have taken a Final Fantasy over God of War. I would have, to be honest. Something new. But, these bundles are pretty sick. And I doubt this one will be that price, but they've been floating around for like $509 for the disc version. Check on like Amazon, stuff like that. So that is a thing right now. Hopefully the boys will be back next week. I'm sure Lucas will probably be here. Kenny, Garrett did say that he's out of commission for quite a while because he has his season is gearing up pretty strong right now. So that's going to be in full gear. This is what they've been training for, I guess. So we will see. But as always, I'd like to share some of the free games or heavily discounted games that I run across throughout the week. I just grabbed up the Epic Games for this week. The first one is Breath Edge. That one is a first-person, story-driven, space salvaging survival game. And I played quite a bit of this. I don't know if I streamed it. I'm always drunk when I stream, which we will do tonight. But I forget what games I fire up. Because that one was on Xbox Game Pass. And it's kind of goofy, but not really. It's very simmy. You're in a crash in space, and you survive. And then you have to kind of you have a hospitable area that you can live in and get your oxygen back. And then you have to make short trips out to gather resources and not die and get back in time so that you can craft things to then allow you to travel further away from your safe spot. Do some salvaging, cut some things up, gather materials, do little quests, things like that. It's actually a pretty entertaining game, so I do recommend that quite a bit. That one is free on Epic Game Store until May 4th. And the next one on there is Poker Club. The players are animated and they're sitting there doing things and they got their glasses. You can make your character look all customized and shit. So it's a poker sim. If you're into poker, this one might be a nice pickup for you. So that one also free on Epic Game Store until May 4th. And that is it. We are done. And as always, you can find us at Nerd Chatter Show on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube. You can find the Nerd Chatter podcast anywhere you can find podcasts, including Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Audible, Spotify, and basically anywhere else you can find podcasts. Make sure to subscribe and follow while you're there. It'd be much appreciated. All of our episodes are uploaded onto our YouTube channel where we do weekly live streams playing various games and drinking, like I said I'm going to do. I fired up Lego Star Wars Skywalker Saga the other day and got some enjoyment out of it. So I got a couple episodes left to finish the storyline, so I might hop on some of that tonight, drink a beer or two, and chill, play some Lego Star Wars. If you like the sports show, head on over to our Discord. We got the repost bot that's still working, actually, surprisingly enough. But he is on there shoveling out all the week's news. We also have the Instagram, which I'm showing full attention to all throughout the week. Kind of have a bar that these things have to hit for me to actually post them on there. You know what I mean? I'm not posting about, Jack Black's Princess Peach song, is now top 100, and like that's not really news. You know what I mean? Like a Dodgeball sequel being confirmed, that's news. You know what I mean? Nintendo going to Gamescom, that's news. You know what I mean? Like that's stuff. I'm like, oh, like Chris Pratt's opinion about that, blah blah blah. Like, nah, like, whatever. I'll get into like a little bit of like James Gunn stuff because that's like all DC related, but really, we saved the juicy shit for the Instagram. So head on over there at Nerd Chatter Show and give us a follow there. And that is pretty much it. I'm gonna go ahead and call it here. You guys take it easy, please.